Our chalice lighting this morning is Persist in Faith by Pat Uribe Lichty. We face a challenge to democracy, a challenge that calls us to hope in moments of despair, a challenge that asks us to persist in the faith that we can and must make a difference. May our flaming chalice recommit us to truth in our words and our actions, that we may live as we believe people should live. Please rise as you are able to sing this morning's gathering song, number 349, We Gather Together.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. This morning we are carrying on our theme that we shared last week, things we're most thankful for. And I'm very grateful to be able to share with you this morning the news that our congregation will have, starting next January 12th, the services of two ministers part-time, Reverend Gary Kowalski and Reverend Monroe Sikafus. Yay! And this morning, Reverend Kowalski has shared with us a sermon that will be part of our service at the regular time, and it is entitled, What is Democracy? But also, he sent to me a letter to be shared with you all this morning. To the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Las Cruces, I look forward to getting acquainted and working together this coming year. As a lifelong UU with 40 years' experience in the ministry, I've had an opportunity to serve churches of all sizes and temperaments. While it's true that no two congregations are the same, there are strong family similarities. All of our faith communities have been stressed in recent years by the pandemic and the need for remote gatherings. All have been challenged by our changing religious landscape as more Americans identify their religion as none of the above. Nationwide, clergy have joined in the Great Resignation, leaving many churches without ministerial leadership. Shifting patterns of work and family life have made it harder to maintain the volunteer and financial base that many congregations traditionally relied on. And the breakdown of civility in our cultural discourse has affected so many institutions, including our places of worship. Despite this, I believe there will always be a healing role for healthy congregations, especially in times like these. Our society needs liberal religious communities where we can remember and restore the democratic virtues of tolerance and respect for differences. We need centers for moral awakening where we support each other in the quest to become our best, most generous selves. We need the wisdom of spiritual traditions that enable us to look beyond the headlines, to glimpse the promise of a more peaceful and compassionate world. For better or worse, we earthlings are all in this together, tasked with learning to share a small planet and live as responsible neighbors with one another. During our brief time this winter and spring, my colleague, Reverend Monroe Sycophus, and I hope that we work together in the spirit of curiosity, affirmation, and hope that characterize our Unitarian faith. We look forward to our shared ministry. Signed, Reverend Gary Kowalski, accredited interim minister, retired. Now, after that good news, I think it's time for us to share our affirmation of covenant. If you would all rise as you are able. Love is the doctrine of our church. The Christ of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Good morning, church. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. We welcome those of you who are in our sanctuary this morning and those who are joining us through streaming technology. Katie Fitzgerald is our service leader today, and I'm Lyn Pearson, the service associate. Our guest minister is the Reverend Gary Kowalski, who will come to us through the wonders of technology. Today's musicians are longtime members, Nancy and David Carlson, on piano. My note says on piano and English horn, respectively. Is that correct? Okay. Our greeters today are Julie Woody, Jane Ash, and Mark Sakonarak. Managing our technology are Elwin Nunn on camera and Mike Yasko, who is currently handling the streaming technology and the sound. Our Social Justice Committee is offering hospitality after the service, and all of us are delighted to be here with you today. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms, and everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church on our website, uuchurchlc.org. If you're visiting with us today, we'd like to meet you. If you're in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit. Introduce yourself by telling us your name and where you're from. Please wait until we bring you a mic so that people on the streaming technology can hear you. Do we have any visitors in the audience today?
I'm Siri Restabach. I have lived in Las Cruces since I was 17 years old, but as a child went to the Unitarian Church in Albuquerque. That's it. Pleasure to be here. Do we have any other visitors?
If you're joining us on Zoom, please turn on your mic and camera in order to introduce yourself. Are there any visitors on Zoom? No, there are not. Thank you, everyone. We're very pleased that you've joined us today. Please fill out a visitor card. If you don't have one, the greeters can give you one. If you do have one, please complete it and drop it in the collection basket later. Everybody on Zoom, please join the chat room after the service. And everyone is invited to coffee and conversation after the service just down the breezeway and outside of the religious education building. And I have a little late developing message. Elwyn will be offering free truffle tasting. So,
One per customer.
yes, I've been told he'll keep track. It's only one per customer. Today's Time for All Ages is called A Sea of Pink, and it was provided by Kelly Ingram, our Director of Religious Education.
Good morning, church. Kelly Ingram here with this morning's Time for All Ages. Today I will be reading the story Sea of Pink. Scott was nervous on his first day of junior high school. Junior high started with 5th grade in his town. He was going to be among the youngest kids in school, and everything was new to him. He had loaded his backpack with all the things on his back-to-school list and his favorite lunch and snacks. He even wore his favorite pink t-shirt for good luck. When he got off of the bus and started walking into the school, he realized how big the 7th and 8th graders were. He sure hoped he got to his growth spurt pretty soon. He didn't see any of his friends. Inside the school, he followed the signs to his new homeroom, room 205. Suddenly, he felt himself being slammed into the lockers on the side of the hall. When he looked up, there were at least 5 older kids looking down on him. "Hey, girly boy," the tallest one scowled. "Boys don't wear pink in this school. You hear what I'm saying?" "Yeah," said another boy with a really deep voice. "And if you do it again, you're gonna get a beating." The first boy grabbed him by the backpack and lifted him off the ground. A teacher's voice called, "Break it up, fellas. Keep moving." The gang of boys moved off. Scott looked up. It didn't seem as if the teacher had even seen him in the middle of all of that, but several other students did. 2 equally tall boys came walking over to Scott. He started to walk away, but one of them put out his hand. "Hey, man, it's okay. I'm Travis." "I'm David," said the other boy. "We saw what happened back there, what those kids did to you." Scott told them what had happened and the threat that they had made. "That's ridiculous," said Travis. "You can wear whatever you want in this school." Travis and David walked Scott to his homeroom. "We'll be keeping an eye out for you, Scott," they promised him. That day after school, Travis and David went back to David's house. "It makes me so mad that a few bullies tell everyone what they can and can't wear. We should do something about it," said David. Yeah, but what can we do? Asked Travis. We could tell the teachers, David suggested. Yeah, but they'd still do it on the bus or at recess or after school, said Travis. We need to take it to the people, David suggested. Yeah, said Travis, a look of excitement growing on his face. Hey, I have an idea. Let's ask all of our friends if they'll wear pink on Monday. Yeah, said David, not just our friends, but everybody. Excellent, grinned Travis. I can see it now, a sea of pink. They called their friend Adam to tell him the plan. He suggested they go to the mall to buy a whole bunch of pink t-shirts. They asked their friends to chip in and bought 75 t-shirts for kids who didn't have pink. Then they decided to send out the word to everyone in the school. Just about everyone was on Facebook, so the word spread fast. That next Monday, David and Travis were at school early with their box of 75 pink t-shirts. Many kids got off of the bus with these pink t-shirts on, and those who didn't got to take one from the box. Travis and David also brought pink fabric, and some kids used it to make pink armbands. One kid brought a pink basketball to recess. At least 415 of the students in the school, over half the kids, both boys and girls, wore pink. That day in school, the bullies were mad. They gave the kids in pink dirty looks, and one of them even threw a chair in the cafeteria, but people just laughed. The bullies knew that the boys had gotten their message across. A message about bullying and people looking out for each other. It made almost everyone in the school feel happier. And what about Scott? He wore his favorite pink t-shirt to school that Monday, underneath his sweatshirt. When he got off the bus and saw how many kids wore pink, he took off his sweatshirt and wore his good luck t-shirt proudly. Sea of pink. Thank you.
Our God.
For today, in our candle lighting, I'd like you to consider for a moment the words that Reverend Kowalski shared with us in his letter, that the value that we have as a congregation, that we can remember and restore the democratic virtues of tolerance and respect for differences. And I looked at what he said, look beyond the headlines, and we have had headlines after headline about violence throughout our country, Colorado, Virginia, and our own state of New Mexico. We have compassion and empathy for the victims and their families, I believe also for the perpetrators and their families. And let's take that in our hearts this morning as we light a candle for those who should be remembered.
Please rise as you are able to sing anthem number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
The people. Yes, the people will live on. The learning and blundering people will live on. They will be tricked and sold and again sold and go back to the nourishing earth for rootholds. The people so peculiar in renewal and comeback, you cannot laugh off their ability to take it. Between the finite limitations of the five senses and the endless yearnings for the beyond, the people hold to the humdrum bidding of work and food, while reaching out when it comes their way for keepsakes lasting beyond any hunger or death. This reaching is alive. The panderers and liars have violated and smutted it, yet this reaching is alive for lights and keepsakes. This old anvil laughs at many broken hammers. There are men and women who cannot be bought. The fireborn are at home in fire. The stars make no noise. You can't hinder the wind from blowing. Time is a great teacher. Who can live without hope? In the darkness, with a great bundle of grief, the people march. In the night and overhead, a shovel of stars for keeps. The people march. Where to? What next? Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plains seeking a home where everyone is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that anyone be crushed by those above. And it never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land of liberty. Let it be crowned by no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free and equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? Who are you that draws your veil against the stars? I'm the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I'm the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I'm the red man driven from the land. I'm the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, mighty crush the weak. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong and brave and true that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, every furrow turned, it's made America the land it has become. I'm the one who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea. And torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never yet has been. Yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath. America will be. As we join in meditation, let us think together of what it might mean to be common citizens of that fabled city where the power of love is finally greater than the love of power, where the prisoners are set free, where the workers receive the reward of their toil, where the swords are beaten into plowshares, and nation shall not make war against nation anymore. What is democracy? Is it wearing a campaign button, or voting, or running for Congress, or maybe running against Congress? Does it mean swearing in a new governor? Or maybe swearing at a new governor? Democracy can mean all of those things, but to really understand it, it helps to have a little bit of history. Back in the day when my mother was young, the president of this country was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Probably before your time for most of you, but all of you know that in those days the world was in terrible trouble. Here at home, factories were closing, people had no jobs, millions had lost their homes, there were vagrants wandering the lands, banks had gone bust overseas. The Nazis had invaded Czechoslovakia and overrun France. And Japan had its troops occupying China. Bullies and dictators with big armies were rattling their bayonets. And in this climate of chaos and fear, President Roosevelt gave a speech to remind Americans of the bedrock values on which our nation was founded, values that he said would have to become worldwide if we were ever to find a peaceful and secure future. It became known as his Four Freedoms talk. Freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. These four were the doors to a safe and hopeful tomorrow, the president said. And a couple of years after that, an artist named Norman Rockwell put flesh and blood on the president's words with a series of paintings that showed what democracy might look like in the lives of ordinary people. And if you visit the Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, you can see the original artworks, and you'll see that, you know, they're very big. They're almost the size of that fireplace over there. You can almost walk into them and be part of the story. The first is freedom of speech. There's a man standing in what seems to be a town meeting, and from his complexion and his weathered hands, we know that he likely works outdoors for a living, probably doing some kind of hard physical labor. And two men are sitting down in the pews nearby, dressed in jackets and ties, and they're looking upwards towards this man with a respectful attitude. His shirt, the speaker's shirt, it's blue, it's plaid, it's a work shirt, it's open at the collar, but he seems very sure of himself, very sure about what he's saying, and he's obviously admired by his better dressed neighbors who care more about what he is saying than the cut of his clothes. The second painting is Freedom of Worship, and the canvas is filled with the faces of men and women, all bathed in a soft, warm light. Their hands are clutched or folded gently in prayer. One's holding the beads of a rosary. People of all races and nations whose eyes seem to be full of care and burdens, but which are all facing in the same direction, focused on something invisible that we cannot see, somewhere beyond the edge of the canvas. And across the top of the painting are the words of James Madison, the father of the U.S. Constitution, according to the dictates of conscience. Freedom from fear, the third painting. Two young children are being tucked into bed by their mother, who's bending down with infinite tenderness in this little attic cubby that serves as their bedroom, and the father stands by her side, gazing down at the sleeping youngsters, proud, also protective. He's holding in his left hand a newspaper whose headline is visible, speaking of horrors overseas, with the headline, "Bombings Kill." Freedom from want. The viewer is welcomed into this last picture in the series to be a guest at a traditional Thanksgiving dinner with all the trimmings of turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberry, sharing the abundance of one family's celebration of this most typical American holiday. These four freedoms, as enunciated by Roosevelt and depicted by Norman Rockwell, they're also very close to being the touchstones of our own spiritual tradition, because after all, those pilgrims who originated the very first Thanksgiving, they also founded that first church, that meeting house in Plymouth, that is a Unitarian church today. And those New England town meetings where the man stands speaking, they're the outgrowth, they're the close cousin of the congregational meetings like the one we'll be holding here next month. There's still the hallmark of our faith, where people take direct charge of their own affairs in matters large and small. Freedom from fear, saying no to violence as a way to resolve our disputes. Freedom from want, building a world where everybody has a seat at the table. Freedom of worship, where Buddhists and Muslims and Jews and Christians can all live together as friends. Freedom of speech, where honest debate and open questions are always welcome. The world has changed dramatically since my mother was young, but these four freedoms are still a roadmap to keep us on the path. These paintings of Rockwell's are on international tour this year for their 75th anniversary of their creation. They're going to be passing through 7 U.S. cities as well as Normandy, France for D-Day before coming back home. And as part of this big celebration, the Norman Rockwell Museum and Foundation invited other artists to paint their own updated 21st renderings of these iconic images, because after all, they do need to be brought into this century. To his credit, Norman Rockwell had a deeply moral imagination. You know, while these paintings were created to raise money to fight the Nazis, they raised tens of millions of dollars in war bonds. He never depicted scenes of combat or success on the battlefield. You know, he chose to celebrate the green beans and the mashed potatoes. But the models that he chose for his paintings were usually his very own neighbors from the kind of postcard town of Manchester, Vermont, where he had his home and his studio. So they couldn't really reflect the full diversity of the America he loved. And he quit the Saturday Evening Post when they refused to let him depict African Americans in anything but menial positions. And he went to work for a new magazine called Look, where he began to immortalize new images like brave Ruby Bridges walking to school in Little Rock, surrounded by federal marshals. He was evolving just as the country was evolving, and I think he would have approved of these new artworks that are done in his style. Actress and activist Rosario Dawson, who is of Cuban and Puerto Rican ancestry, posed to exemplify freedom of speech, which is depicted on the cover of this morning's order of service. One senses that in this community meeting, women's voices are heard, and se habla español. Shortly after California legalized same-sex unions, artist Maggie Miners asked two of her good friends, a married gay couple, to take the role of Graham and Gramps at the head of the Thanksgiving table, serving up the roasted turkey. And I'll tell you, grandparents never look so buff. And the same artist modified freedom from fear to show an African-American mom tucking her two children into bed. She's in that very same attic cubby, that little bedroom, but she's holding a copy of the Chicago Tribune in her hand, and the headline reads, "Another black youth shot." The violence isn't far away. It's all too close. And these young lives matter. And when a Muslim man spoke at her Christian church, she painted him too, along with a woman wearing the traditional headscarf or hijab, along with a copy of the Quran, replacing the rosary beads that were in Rockwell's original work, or rather, not replacing the rosary beads. Those will always be there, but adding to them, expanding, broadening, because what these new paintings are saying is that Norman Rockwell's work may be outdated, but it's not dead. They're saying that now this is what America looks like. This is what the four freedoms look like, the forms of liberty. They're not just museum pieces. They're not just relics of a nostalgic bygone age. They're living, growing realities, although always in danger of being forgotten or corrupted. America's almost forgotten about the Great Depression. It's become the richest nation in the world, but it's in danger of moral bankruptcy because it leaves the poor behind. It's no longer threatened by armies from abroad, having achieved the military might to destroy the world many, many times over. But in the arrogance of power, we risk creating perpetual enemies and endless war. Having defeated the Nazis in Europe in our parents' generation, they're marching now in our own backyard. The country sometimes seems to have lost its soul, its sense of direction. But for that very reason, I think that what we do here matters. Congregations matter. People assembled in House United or at the People's Assembly to talk about the issues of the day, to pool their resources for the common good, to vote on how their money gets spent, electing their own town moderators and counselors and church boards, exercising the faculty of dissent, learning how to disagree with each other without being at each other's throats, practicing tolerance. All of these arts matter enormously if the four freedoms are to be kept alive, because democracy is not something that happens far away in Washington, D.C., or on the evening news. It starts right here. In congregations like this one, it began and it remains alive in our own liberal religious tradition. This, all of you, all of us, we are what democracy looks like.
Every week in our church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through pledges that we build our budget and fund our yearly programs and ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff and professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our buildings. And we know that we could easily submit those pledges to the church at any convenient time. But we pass the plate during our worship service to make community expression of thanks for the blessing of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering also says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday morning. It is, in fact, a ministry. The morning offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship. Please rise as you are able to sing our closing hymn, number 159, This Is My Song.
Our closing words come this morning from James A. Hobart. As we depart from one another, let our hearts be secure through every human season. Let our hearts be secure in seasons of anguish as in seasons of joy, in seasons of failure as in seasons of success, in seasons of uncertainty as in seasons of security. Let our hearts be secure in this dual reality. We are worthy recipients of love and support we can never earn, and we are worthy providers of love and support others cannot earn. Let our hearts be secure, for hearts know and understand and will respond if invited in.
I call your attention to several announcements on the back of your order of service. And I also want to remind you that Elwyn's giving away free truffles. Out in the breezeway, down by the Religious Education Building. I have one other announcement that isn't in the order of service, and that's from the membership committee. We recently put out a call for Circle Supper hosts. We have not gotten many responses. Another request will go out this afternoon, and I hope that some of you will respond positively so that we have enough hosts for Circle Suppers in January. Thank you. I should have turned my page. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you.
Well, yeah, yeah, I turned on the volume. So if you turn off your thing, you can talk to them.